Kia ora, everybody. We're back for another meaningful conversation. My name's Asha Anderson, and I'm here with my very good friend Barbara Belger and Grace Faufasa. We're here today to open up a discussion on ritual, ceremony, tikanga, process within our circles and groups, and how we can honor the intentions with which we come together regularly, and how we can maybe explore making sure that we get the most out of our time together and our work together, and how we can foster healthy groups and a healthy culture. So welcome to you both.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Grace. Asha,
Nice to be here, Asha.
Yeah, really nice to be here with you both, and to get Grace involved in some of these discussions. She is the Northland Healers coordinator and is doing a lot of work around starting healing circles in Northland, and that crosses over into our crop swap circles. So there's a lot of groups, coming together, people being drawn together for specific purposes, and we're wanting to, figure out the best way to facilitate these groups and to, in a harmonious way, where we can get the most out of our time together. So it'd be really good, I suppose, starting off with ritual, ceremony, tikanga, process, whatever word you want to call it, guidelines. There's lots of different words that we can use to kind of express what we're talking about. In a healthy group, what do you think the benefits of having some rituals or ceremony laid out, within a group setting?
So for me, I believe it's respecting the old natural way, how it was done from the beginning. And that's respect to our ancestors as well. And also it's raising the energy and the vibrations of the circle and then of the whenua where we are, and supporting our mahi that we're trying to, I guess, do and also create as well, and that's supporting that kaupapa.
Yeah, beautiful. Yep, definitely. I mean, the vibration, the energy with which people turn up to a circle, and the energy, that is created between, people within the circle and the intention is really palpable. It's a really strong, present thing if you're able to actually create the right conditions for it to come through. Definitely. And I feel that myself when we have a good, really good, well facilitated circle where people turn up, with that right kind of energy. What do you think, Barbara? I mean, you've had quite a lot of experience facilitating groups and.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's a holding vessel. Ceremony is a holding vessel, and again, I always think of a circular movement, and we call it circle for a good reason. And within that holding vessel is, like you said, Grace, are our ancestors, is the energy, are the values of that circle, respect for each other, and intentionality. And all of this is in that holding circle or holding vessel. That's, I think that's how I see it. And it's, I think, ladies, I think why it's coming up more than before probably is that it's ever so more important, because we're coming into circles, into gatherings, very raw, very vulnerable. And that is really, really important to do. Whereas before, for centuries, we put on our best dress and a wig and a necktie and our Rolex watch and all kind of things to actually hide behind. And that is changing. That we come. That's also in an organizational structure in companies. That is now different. The new kind of leadership in companies is coming as you are, and people struggle a little bit with that. It's a give and take. So that is, and we don't want rules. We don't want to go back and have rules and laws and law enforcements and punishment and all that. So that's why I think ceremony and a holding description of a holding circle is maybe so more important than ever. I compare it. Sorry to I'll be quiet in a moment.
Oh, please.
I compare it a bit to a sangha. Sangha is the Sanskrit word for a church. I think it's a gathering. And if I think of a cathedral, for example, I don't know whether you've been to Notre Dame in Paris. You enter the cathedral, and you're just in awe. You naturally are quiet. You naturally are there with an open heart and with a connection to spirit. And that is because of ceremony having been in place for so long. So that is what comes to mind at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it reminds me, I mean, we've been on a journey with these crop swap circles, and for me, that's other than being a teacher, that's the most experience that I've had over these years with actually facilitating large groups. And I remember our very first crop swap when around 70 people turned up, and the just the incredible energy and the buzz, first of all, each person having that excitement of coming, and then the excitement between people energetically, and then when we're actually sitting down together, and how to manage that in a way where you've got 70 people there who all have something that they want to speak. There's a lot going on for them, but we just it kind of fell into place. I think the process that we developed, and it was what really underpinned that for me was principles and values around the reasons that we came together, and maintaining people's focus on those values, and which were the koha economy. We're entering into a very uncertain, unstable, and somewhat fearful time because of that, and so bringing that center back to the heart and back to the idea of giving without fear of that you won't have enough, and just helping to instill that within the culture of the group, that was, for me, was quite a strong foundational point. Because when you think about koha and the way we expressed it to people, was that you come with something to share. You can come with nothing to share, that's fine too. Everyone's welcome, and no one's judged in that sense. And you don't have a solid expectation of what you want to swap for, that it's quite a, you just come with open arms to see what you will receive. And in the end, there was, for me, from what I saw, there was always an affirmation that was fulfilled, that little prophecy of, you come with something or nothing, and you'll always leave with something that you're happy with. So that was something that we carry on throughout all of these crop swaps. And then I think as well, the very simple process of the circle, that's where the real ceremony takes place. It's quite a little bit bustling when people arrive and they're getting ready, but then when we sit down, it quietens us, and we stick to those simple, opening the circle with a karakia, just to focus us and realign us, or a heart meditation, as you have done many times, Barbara, and to kind of calm our energy, because of the buzz. I mean, I'm quite sensitive to energy, I feel, and I can easily be like, there's a crowd and it's hard to kind of focus. So being able to do that at the beginning of the circle, and just quieten ourselves together, and tap into that heart space, or connect with Papatuanuku, or connect with the divine, and then starting our circle with the very, very simple instructions of share who you are, where you're from, what you've bought, and if you're looking for anything. And that works so beautifully. I think, that's what I felt anyway. That works so beautifully, because it's simple and it keeps us on point and it helps focus our intention. Yeah, and of course, we'll get onto kind of problems and that the kind of issues that arise, within these circles, because it's not always straightforward and perfect like that. But I found that having that simple, really meaningful, and very clear kind of way of doing things created as well an expectation. People know what to expect when they come. And I know that that's really important as well, that you're not turning up and things are different every time. So that, I think that really helped community to flourish. And then of course having the time afterwards when people can connect on those other issues, whatever's on their mind, because there's so much to talk about, politics and everything that's going on in the world. So having that space for people to do that afterwards, I think, worked really well.
Yes, I agree. And that is where it's a bit, again, I was, I connect the big picture and then come down to the small picture. And the microorganism of that is, of course, a relationship, a one-on-one relationship with a partner or a close friendship. And the longer or the more often you meet, the more intimate that becomes, the better you know each other. And then what is in place between you is a safe space. So the safer that space is, and the better your boundaries are within yourself, the safer that space is, and the more, paradoxically, the more intimate the relationship actually can become and is becoming. And that I think is what we're defining at the moment. And I totally agree. When we first did the heart meditation, I remember the very first time I did that, and I thought, oh my goodness, people will say I didn't come here to meditate and that's not my thing. And then this huge man came afterwards and he said, that was so nice. I so enjoyed doing that. And I thought, I wouldn't have expected this person of all the people to actually enjoy that. But what it does with the heart meditation is that it connects what we essentially all are. It connects us and it gives us a chance to connect from heart to heart. And that is, and in our heart, we're all one. That is where we're all one. And I do think, and that's not just from the circle, that is from years of doing it, and that's also from scientific research from the HeartMath Institute, yes, that it increases group coherence. It like in a research and development department of companies, when they did these heart focus, the heart coherence practices, it increases the creative output. It decreases accidents just because people are more present, they're more in the now. And I mean, there's a lot of science behind the actual heart coherence science, or heart rate variability, they call it in trauma work. So yeah, I think it's an important part of the ceremony to do that.
Definitely, yeah. Grace, you've been to a few of the circles. Well, how did you feel about the process? And
so yes, I have been to a few of the circles. We have been trying to be inclusive and incorporate Tikanga and put those processes in place so it flows much more easier for people that are attending. I guess all in all, it's never going to be perfect, but at least we are trying to put something in place that people can follow, more than call it a rule or control. It's really just the point of respect, and everyone, you're being respectful of the person next to you, the people around you. You're also being respectful of people who are in need or I guess they're here for a reason, but they're not too sure yet, or they're just a person who sits back and looks in and doesn't interact. But then there's others that love to interact more so. But I mean, it's just the respect of that being put in place. So then everyone gets to say something, everyone gets heard, and then also people that are there to learn or to share have that opportunity as well. And you can see that in the circles, and it's growing and growing even more. People are enjoying it. There's more people coming. They get excited about, sharing the space with like-minded others. And it's open to everyone. So when we speak of the tikanga and the kaupapa, we could be inclusive of all cultures, because there's many of us from different parts of the world that are there sharing the one space. So that allows us to open up to other cultures and sharing what their karakia is like, or what's their kaupapa in their country. Maybe that might be something to look at to be inclusive, because healing, sharing it's all the colors, it's not just one. And that's how I look at it when we share a circle as well. We're all there, we're all light beings, we're there for the same cause and to help each other. So I believe that being inclusive of everyone's culture, not just Māori, but every culture that's there. And I think that's a sign of respect to everyone that's in the space, and to make people feel comfortable. We're in a world now where there's so many rules, restrictions. I guess you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that in some other country, but we share this world all together, and we always are going to. And I think being mindful of other people's cultures as well, not just Māori here, um, is respect for everyone. And I believe that's what we're trying to put in place as well, with the kōrero of Māori language into our, I guess, hui like this, and also our circles, the karakia we're incorporating. So we've been very inclusive and respectful in that sense, and really want to learn more and know more
Yes.
about the Māori culture, and also other cultures as well. And I think that's really important for us, that we are sharing, and I guess it's a way of teaching as well, because we're teaching others about karakia, which they never mostly knew before, or they knew one, not or didn't know there were so many. And I think that's really awesome, that in the circles that is happening, people are learning about culture, ceremony, ritual. Many people have different religions or faiths, and in the circles, we're not putting a faith or a religion onto people. It's just respecting the energy, the light, the circle itself, life as well, and who came before us, and honoring them as well. And
Yeah.
in every culture, we have those processes and that tikanga and that kaupapa that we respect. And I think the circle is a powerful space to be able to educate and teach people about the different cultures there. So that's something I believe has been well thought out by Barbara and Asha. And I think, the respect to you guys for wanting to be inclusive, because as the Māori myself, and there's a lot of, I guess, segregation with, the respect of asking, and also the kaupapa of the work that's been done by the circles. But for me, it works both ways, we're all people, and we all have a culture, and it's just being mindful and respectful of everyone around you, and just to be inclusive is what the circles are all about. And, the circles are mindful of everything. So, and it can only grow and get better, and everyone's going to love it. And it's just something that's really important to all of us, that, we've been inclusive, which is awesome.
I think you touched on something that maybe we kind of take for granted, really, because I think the transition towns, well, the energy of our group, and I think transition towns in general, is really just about people on a local level, people. any people, doesn't matter which people, coming together, you know, to face whatever challenges they're facing together. And so by its very nature, it's always been inclusive. And that has actually been something that we've had to really emphasize during these times of enforced segregation, which aren't necessarily enforced based on culture, more so, you know, based on your own personal medical preferences. But it's been something that's come up really really strongly, and so we've had to make sure that that is understood, that we will never discriminate against anyone, whether you don't have any food to share, whether you're jabbed or unjabbed, whether you're, you know, this or that, it just doesn't matter. And in terms of the karakia, my favorite way to open it is to actually ask, would anyone like to open the circle with a karakia, and offer that up to the circle, you know, to come back. And there've been some most beautiful things come through. And sometimes there's no one, you know, who wants to put anything forward, and that forces me as the facilitator to step up and step into something, and that's slightly a little bit maybe outside of my comfort zone, but you know, that's the growth, you know, that needs to take place, and something that I'd like to get better at. So, but no, it's been really incredible seeing the cross-denominational, you know, the ability of people, no matter what their background or their religious or cultural affiliations might be, being able to not drop those so much as come as yourself to the circle and be accepted. And that we, as you said, Grace, it's a really powerful learning time for all of us when we get together to actually hear what others have to say and have to share, and the perspective, the heartfelt perspective that they're coming from. No, that's all really good. And the tikanga, you know, and Maori to ao Maori is something that we are so very, very keen and desperate to really, you know, to learn and understand more, and are looking for ways, you know, to be able to do that and integrate more of that, you know, as we live in such a rich, you know, culturally rich area, and we all have an obligation to, you know, to learn and to start to understand and connect, I think, more with that, you know, and all other cultures, really. Yeah.
We had a little talk a while ago, Grace, about the plant and herbs and healing plants, and I don't know whether you were aware of it, but there is healing plants and herbs, or every plants, not only in New Zealand, but everywhere else in the world, have a very special place. And one of my favorite guys in Germany who writes books about healing plants, and he's this old guy with a very, very long beard. And he knows the story of every plant, of every very similar to the whakapapa of Rongoa Rākau here, and just having that little conversation, bringing this up, you know, that the inclusiveness within our circle, that created this learning space that maybe you weren't aware of, and so somebody else could bring that in and say, other healing plants have a story as well. But what came to mind, and maybe just coming briefly from a psychology perspective, or more for a trauma, from a trauma-informed perspective, a circle does what we naturally do. I want to believe that as humans, we naturally want to connect to others. We naturally feel a place of connection. When we go through fear or an adverse event or a stressful event, or call it trauma, we feel disconnected. When we're in pain, or when we so mental or physical pain, what comes to mind is the first thing that we say, you don't know how bad that feels. You just don't know. And that for me is always a sign that we now feel separated. And so what the circle does is actually bringing us back into a connection with ourselves and others. And that's where healing, that's the only place where healing happens. But, and quite often that is maybe a little bit difficult, to come into full integration with it all, because while we still are not healed, and we still all have a lot of healing to do, we do want to go towards judgment. Placing judgment is really is a tool, or is a practice that we do in order to define ourselves better. That's why we need judgment. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to do judgment. So circles by themselves are a healing space, even just having the circle. And that is why it is so important to create the circle and make it a vessel of love and connection. And that is, I think, what our discussion is all about.
Yeah.
Curiosity, when people come, they know there's the circle, there is the in the circle is a certain ritual, and that relaxes the mind. That relaxes the mind to an extent where you can be curious, where you can listen, and where you can sit outside and observe everything, and let everybody in without needing to think, oh, when is it my talk? When is it my time to talk? When can I finally, and how much can I bring into this as much as possible? And that is just not, you often, the main thing about good communication is the art of listening. And like I mentioned that to you, Asha, the leadership training that I did a few years with MIT, the ULab, talks about the 4 levels of listening, and the 4th level really is stillness. It really is, turning the camera and looking onto yourself, and then just allowing a space of stillness without having your thought, or without coming from a place, oh, that's what I wanted to say, or I want to add something, or whatever. It's just stillness. We're so uncomfortable. We've become so uncomfortable with silence. And that's why my suggestion for our ritual is, after the heart connection, or whichever ritual we want to do, is just to have a moment of silence, to look into people's eyes one by one, and then just silence.
Yeah. Thank you, Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another word I think that was brought up by one of you just now, maybe both of you, was the non-judgmental, and as you're saying, Barbara, that the circle is by default becomes a healing space. And I think we've seen that quite a bit, because we, not only in the crop swap circle, because people are going through so much at the moment, and it's right there on the edge, and they're needing to share and connect and find others who understand, or just sometimes just share with others. We invited people to, sometimes share a little bit of news, or they just felt that they wanted to, add on a little bit about their own personal circumstance and what they're going through. And that, not only I think was it beneficial for them because they felt safe enough to be able to do that, but it was beneficial for everyone within the circle, because they were in a position where they were having to listen and just be there and sit with it and not judge it. Being aware that this is a non-judgmental space, and that we are here for each other, just to, even if it is just to listen and just to be, that there's incredible power in just doing that, even if there's no answer or resolution for that person. So it is interesting how the crop swap circle, which is essentially about food and, and kohar and the heart, is a healing space, a very healing space. And it's turned really into a community. as well, which was the other aspect of what we, you know, want to be able to foster is a heart-based community where that becomes our way of engaging with each other, even outside of the circle. Yeah. So
we had a discussion in the beginning, if I may just interrupt you there, Asha. We had one of the first discussions out at the farm still, I think, when we were out at the farm, was what do we do when people don't bring anything?
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. And we made it clear that I remember saying that is particularly important for us then to approach these people. You know, we see them coming without anything once or twice. Approach people and say, is there anything else we could help you with? You know, we notice, and this is what I think the beauty of humanity and compassion is. You know, put on your Dalai Lama hat or your Jesus hat and open your heart and approach people from that way, and not saying, oh, you know, this person has come here twice now without bringing anything, and what are their circumstances? How can we help? And that is always an opportunity for the person and for us to heal and just grow just that little bit, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. That's been, I think, a core principle of how we've operated this, you know, so that we really are coming from that abundance mindset, not that scarcity mindset of, oh, you didn't bring anything, you shouldn't take anything. And I, you know, and it's come up once or twice with people saying that they noticed someone, you know, come a couple of times and not take anything, and that they were concerned about that. And so it's something we have to educate, you know, everyone that comes on, that this is actually how we operate. And the reason behind that, you know, is that we are living within that abundance mindset. And at the end of the day, you know, I have over the last couple of years, I actually don't think I've ever seen it being abused. I actually don't. And at the end of the crop swap, there's usually stuff that still needs to be taken. So we're giving it away, you know, like it's there to be taken. So, and you don't know what that person's situation is, and you don't know that they're not going to turn up next time with a whole, you know, their arms full of whatever. So it's definitely a really important aspect of that whole koha economy,
Yes.
not tying us to solid expectations, or even when that return will come, or even if that return will come, we don't have to be fixed on that.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I do like the idea of time banking, just bringing that in. You know, people say, I would have done this anyway, but by exchanging a time credit, then you put a value to it, and suddenly it becomes something else. You know,
Sure.
it becomes a contract between you and I in a nice way. It's also from you know, what we're trying to create here, and I'm looking forward to reading the book that I ordered, The Art of Gathering. And hopefully we can learn some more fabulous tools from it. But what we're doing with any circle, with any gathering, is the entering, being part of the circle, being an active member of the circle, and then leaving the circle. And that is what I found, or what I've been observing, is quite an important part for me.
Yeah,
it is. And it should end with some kind of ceremony. Just, I think in our crop swap, I think it will be very difficult to bring people back in the circle, because then they're discussing and they're doing their thing. And that's why I suggested maybe have a little moment of gratitude. Just pick a pen, take a piece of paper, write what you're grateful for or who you're grateful for today, and just put that in the box, and then you're good to go. It just concludes that for me somehow. So I don't know what you feel about, but I think the closing is quite important as well.
Absolutely. Yes, I do. I think it's as important probably as the opening, really, to bring that circle to completion. And I have seen when it's not closed properly, just the energy dissolves, and in fact, it just kind of disappears, and that closure is missing.
Yes.
So I really love that idea of taking a moment to focus on, whatever you're grateful for, whether it's writing it down or whether we'll all just sit there and get something in our mind, that we're grateful for, and then conclude that way. And it brings some resolution, and it also, I think, keeps that vibration up high rather than letting it feel like, oh, it's just kind of dissolved. So yeah, absolutely. That's something we can do better on, and yeah, and then there's that, you're transitioning to that more, go and check out the table, go and chat with people, it's that more kind of fluid, dynamic time after we've concluded the circle.
Yeah.
Well, I
think that's why people, as long as humanity has existed, why people have created things like altars, or little corners of your room where you keep your ancestors' pictures, or it's a place, it's an energy, it's a connection. And so the gratitude, or whatever we want to do, we could just create a little space, like where we have the crop swap now. There is this tree trunk, the cut off tree trunk. We could just put a bowl on top of that, and then, because that's on the way out anyway, so people then just write a little note of gratitude, or have just a moment where they just stand and they just connect and feel this moment of gratitude or whatever, and then that's good to go. And then the circle stays, even if when you leave you're still connected to it.
Yeah,
you can go about your daily life, but that forever a connection has been made.
Yeah, definitely. I like that idea.
It's a bit like in Maori and other cultures, in some Asian cultures as well. When a baby is born, that you keep the placenta. In Te Reo Maori, it's the same word, whenua and whenua, and that is also, it's keeping the circle connected. That you keep connected to Mother Earth, and you keep connected to your mother, and so yeah, I'm very excited about having a conversation like we're having, because I know that next time we talk about this, that we will have learned so much more, and we can bring so much more into it.
Yeah,
and I hope people who watch the video will contribute. Maybe leave the comments open and check what comments come in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is an open process, and I mean, it's something that we have developed as the facilitators, because we are having to, to manage that energy to a degree, and on behalf of everybody, and for everyone who shows up. But part of being a good steward and a good facilitator is being open to the suggestions and ideas of each other and others, and developing something that we can all feel good about, that honors our collective intentions. So maybe before we finish, it would be good to maybe talk about a few of the kind of problems that can come up, and how to manage those. One that I can think of is sometimes, there might be somebody who really has a lot to say, and they're sharing a lot, and maybe at the expense of other people's turn in the circle, or that they might be going off on tangents and bringing in topics that really are dispelling our focus on the food and community and the crop swap intentions that we've placed there. And while those maybe tangents and topics that are being brought in are important, really important to discuss, it does impact, you know, our ability to focus, and it makes people restless when they have to, you know, they have no control over listening to someone, and when it's dragging on. So that's something, you know, that happens every now and then. It's something as facilitators we need to get good at, kind of helping to keep that flow going.
What we did, and what I learned in my training, especially in the NLP trainings, and something that I've used in my workshops, is to open the training with a story. And there's lots of, here's my bookshelf behind me. I've got tons of storybooks, and I love creating my stories. And then you just tell 60% of the story. So just when it gets really, really interesting and whatever, and people's attention is on the high, and then you finish at the end of the training, you finish with the rest of the story. And what it does, that everything that was in your training is embedded in that story. So you just remember that one little story, but your mind has incorporated or embedded everything that's in it, and nested learning. And so that, I just wanted to add that to what we were talking before. I think what you're mentioning with people talking too long or bringing topics up that are not part of it, I wonder whether this is another call for us to actually create a space for these discussions to happen as well. What makes it uncomfortable within the circle is that you enter the circle, and that is your commitment to stay, and then you'd feel trapped. You almost feel trapped. You can't just get up and leave because, you know, I'm not interested in this corridor now. And that is, you did it very early on out at the farm, Asha, that you created. There was some noise. There was one meeting where we purposefully said, we're creating a space after the crop swap to discuss in the community, have a community discussion. And that was very, very good, I think. And again, it happened in a circle, if you remember. And people, it was very important for people to outpour their heart about, that was 2 years ago, when we were all quite shocked with what was happening. So maybe it is important to have that on the schedule, you know, that the crop swap is finished, you're leaving that circle, and then you enter a different space where you do hold these discussions. I don't know. I don't want to not hear the people and what they have to say, because there is a reason why they want to talk. But it is not within the purpose of this circle. It's another separate.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that allows us to honor the intention of the reason that we all came together for this particular circle, while also making sure that those important discussions can still happen, and they should still happen, with their own focus and intention on that topic at hand. Yeah. Grace, I know you had some good ideas around bringing people's focus back to the circle, perhaps when, you know, there's tangents kind of happening.
Yes, so what I would say is, I'm sure we've all been in a circle or at a hui or a workshop, a function, and I guess the facilitator or coordinator can see the different energies mingling together. So we can get into our own worlds and we forget to be present and to remember and respect that we're here to share and yes, do something, which is the crop swap. So we're there to share our energies, plus we're there to share our kai as well that we've brought, and to share it with others. So I know we've all been there where you're trying to bring the circle back together and get everyone's attention. Most people would turn to a loud voice or to try and talk over everyone else that is talking, and it sort of disturbs the energy. And I thought a nicer way of doing that was using instruments to bring back the circle as well. And I think that's a much more respectful way to everyone. Words can be quite powerful, tone, and the way it is, I guess, presented to everyone, and that can offend. So a nicer way of bringing back the circle and getting everyone's attention is to use, I don't know, what instrument do you have at home that you could bring along? And this is open to everyone. Bring an instrument along and say, I have this instrument, maybe we could use it for this session. And that's also been inclusive as well. And that's someone else's energy. And then excites the person that, oh, great, we're going to be using something that I've provided for this circle. So it brings back everyone in a nice way without any words being said. It's a sound. It's a beautiful sound, and I think that helps to do what you're trying to do and keep the circle present. And yeah, using an instrument is amazing. So just some ideas would be a drum, a tuning fork, a tambourine maybe, or someone might have a guitar that's been sitting there at home and they haven't used it for a while, and maybe you could do a strum or something. Yeah. I mean, there's so many options and so many ways of people being involved, and this is just like one great way of keeping that safe energy and that love there without offending anyone. And I think if we set that in place, and it can go quite far with many hui, like there's talking sticks as well that can be used. There's so many tools that you can use that are not words, just by action and sound, really.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think it's gentle, and that respects the energy that we're trying to cultivate. And a talking stick, so there's lots of tools. We have some talking sticks that we would like to integrate properly into the circles, because I think that's a really beautiful way of showing people who's actually talking at the moment, and not to just butt in and cut them off. And it's fun, I find kids like to actually participate a bit more when the talking stick is going around, because they get their turn to hold it, and I find in general people enjoy using that as a really good tool.
What I did, if I can just add something, please. What I did in workshops, and where else did I see that happening? Is like when I do a workshop, I ask somebody in the audience to take on that role, the role of the interrupter or whatever. Yes. So I gave them whatever I come up with, something like a colorful feather or something. So I just asked them purposefully. So when I go off on a tangent as the workshop facilitator, and you see people's eyes glazing over and everyone is bored to death, just would you please put the feather up and remind me that it's time to have a break or time to whatever. And I think if we, at the beginning of the opening of the circle, if we assign someone, it's like a timekeeper, if you want, if we assign someone that role of the whatever we want to call it, calling us back into the circle, maybe the one with the drum and those roles can change each time. And it's not us, the facilitator, but it's somebody from the group actually saying, okay, you've said too much, you've talked too long, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and I can see, and definitely in some situations that would be really, it takes a lot of energy for one person to help to manage the flow of that space. And so it really is everybody's job, and having someone else help in that way, definitely would help a lot, because I think a lot of us are empaths, and so we might have skills that relate to being able to facilitate, but there's so much energy, and there's so many people bubbling and wanting to talk, and then sometimes we ourselves, so having someone a little bit more neutral who can help to bring us back to the focus is really, really good. Well, shall we maybe just finish up with a few of the key points around why, what the purpose of having tikanga, process, ritual, ceremony, etiquette, within our circles is, and then I'm sure that each of you will have something to finish us off with a few thoughts. Maybe I'll just read from the document that we started to put together a little bit, some of the purpose that the ideas around the purpose of including this in our circles.
I'm also mindful that we just have another few minutes. I think Grace has another meeting.
Okay. Yep. Great. Okay. So some of the main thoughts around why we want to include this and why we do already include this, and we need to keep working on it, improving it, is to respect the intention of the meeting. We can't lose focus of the reason that we all came together. To respect each other's time and effort. Getting together, driving, petrol, our time, our energy, our focus are all very valuable. So we need to respect each other's time and effort actually turning up in these circles. Respecting the facilitators of the meeting. It's a challenging job to actually be there in front of lots of people and to be helping to try to balance those energies and guide a circle so that we can all get the most out of it. Raising the energetic vibration and the frequency of the circle, is so important. It's actually really easy, I think, for us to slip into negative vibrations, especially when, when there's a lot of energy, a lot of different people's energy around, and you don't know what energy people bring with them. So, making sure that that's actually a focus of what our role is as facilitators, and something that all people that come and join us should be aware of, is what energy are they bringing, and are we maintaining and raising that vibration of the circle while we're together. And then ensuring that everyone gets a chance to share, and that we're not dominating, or that we create an awareness around whether we're talking too long, or whether if we're going off on a tangent. It's our individual role to call ourselves back into check, and then of course others can step in and help us, or remind us, if need be. And then I think one other really important thing is that not all circles are the same. They're all different. They're all beautifully different and diverse, and they don't all have to have a strict format that they follow, but these are just really useful tools that can help us, with all of these things, and help basically to make our time together a lot more meaningful, and that we can all get more out of it and leave more fulfilled. Grace, do you have any parting thoughts on
Yeah, well, what we're speaking about today, I believe we've come to this because we can see, we can hear suggestions and what can be put in place. So I guess we can weave those through into our circles that we do. So with the time banking hui, the crop swaps, the Northland healers coming together, and that's creating synchronicity as well within our circles. It's like we're weaving that all together, and I guess because we're in a world of disarray and we don't know what's going on. But then if we're all present and we have these guidelines put in place, then that allows us to grow as a whole, and not just a community. It can have a ripple effect everywhere. So if we put this tikanga in place and kaupapa and towards our mahi, I think that's really important for everyone. And I think it's something to really support and be mindful about as well when you are at a circle, that these guidelines. And I guess hopefully when we have completed the document, we're able to share with our groups as well, or our circles, and then they can always have that on hand with them, so we can all follow that process and those guidelines. I call them guidelines because rule is very harsh, it's quite domineering. So the guidelines and tools are perfect for our kete, and having those in place, I think everyone will really enjoy the circles more because there's something in place. A lot of people do like structure, they want to be guided, so this is great. And it's just to make sure everything flows and that we're respecting each other and what we are doing, what, you know, our time especially, our gifts from our mara, and to share that with everyone. And that's your energy that's going into many different things. So yeah, it's amazing to put this in place and then allow it to organically grow, and then it'll turn out to whatever it's meant to be for that certain circle, and yeah, and your energy. So it's nice to see that we're having this talk about that, and it can put it into place for our circles that we gather and share.
Awesome. Thank you, Grace. Yeah, that's great. Barbara, any thoughts before we finish up?
I'd like to finish with gratitude in a moment, but one last thing is this concept of conflict and avoiding conflict. When people step out from the circle and they don't respect, I'm just coming from a place of communication training and conflict resolution. We've got to remember the concept of problem ownership. You know, when you have when somebody does something and it upsets you, who owns the problem? They do what they do. They don't have a problem. You have a problem because you respond or you react to it. So that is the art of conflict resolution that you have to find within yourself. How do you communicate this to the other person so they understand? And I think we have to leave this for another time. That is that's a big topic, and that is why people are so keen at the moment to do communication trainings and attend. One of the popular ones is the nonviolent communication, and my training is with Dr. Bolstad's transforming communication, and Gordon's apparent effectiveness. And that is, again, we have to leave it for another one, but I just want to end with gratitude for both of your openness and preparedness to come into this circle and bring your ideas and keep open-hearted. And I'm grateful for what this is now already creating. And you know, Asha, how I talk about social fields and new social field, and I think we've just extended that and embellished this a little bit more.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, and absolutely another discussion on conflict resolution and that topic for sure. And yeah, I'm grateful to you both for taking time today to open a discussion, because it's just the beginning, you know, and I think it's really exciting to create this and amplify our collective intention in ways that will just, I think, have that ripple effect that will go beyond what we can imagine. And actually, I think, alluding back to something Grace said, respect our ancestors and a human process that has developed over eons, and bring that back into the present, and the power and the energy and the frequency that brings with it. So yeah, great gratitude to you both, and yeah, and to the people watching, hopefully this has been insightful and has helped you maybe, and given you some ideas about what we're trying to achieve as people who are part of this collective, and also, you know, give you ideas for how you might be able to cultivate healthy groups and healthy circles and get the most out of it. So if you like this video, like it, share it, comment. We'd love to hear from you, and we look forward to making more in the future. Yeah. All right. Thank you, ladies. We'll catch up with you next time.